Welcome to week 10 of the Me and White Supremacy virtual pilgrimage. My name is the Reverend John Borthwick, and I'm on this journey through the book, Layla Saad's book, Me and White Supremacy. I've invited my congregation to join me and bear witness to my reflections on this work. Would encourage you to read it yourself and to take that journey as well. I've also got a great community of folks that I'm connecting with just around reflecting personally on how this material is impacting ourselves and sharing quite vulnerably, where we're coming from, what we've experienced, even a little bit of confession of how we've navigated the world. This week, content warning again, it's me, a person who holds privilege, who is white, who is male, talking about this material in such a way that could easily be triggering, could cause harm, and it's not my intention, but my intention doesn't really mean anything when I say things out loud that could easily be upsetting, could cause harm, could hurt, could trigger a reality that BIPOC experiences on a regular basis. So just take care of yourself and be aware of that as I share this video today. And we're on this series, as Layla's laid it out in the book, of speaking very specifically about anti-blackness as opposed to just the general, more anti-racism conversation. And last week was anti-blackness against black women. This week it's anti-blackness against black men. And I'm stuck in the same reflective pattern as I was last week. I'm stuck in this pattern of not yet fully being aware of the ways in which I have treated, I have interacted, I've engaged, I've perceived black men differently, in ways that would be different from how I would interact with other persons and other people, and what internal thinking is going on when I'm engaging in conversation or developing relationships with black men specifically. And I was really powerfully struck by Layla's words at the end of last week's chapter, where she talked about we need to excavate and confront and excavate and confront, and then excavate and confront, and then own. Sorry, this is a very personal reflection, and sorry for my memory loss there. But excavate, confront, and then own what we're experiencing, what we're learning, what we're bringing up for ourselves within this excavation stage, in order to practice anti-racism. And excavation is really where I'm discovering I'm in at this point. I really need to excavate more, because listening and reading and rereading these chapters, I'm just getting stuck in thinking, well, I'm trying to avoid defensiveness, but sort of a sense of, well, no, that's not how I would do things, or that's not who I am, or that's not what I bring to any of these relationships. But wondering and realizing, I've been raised in a system. I was brought up in a culture. I have navigated the world through whiteness, and I'm unaware of a variety of things that would be different. Would be a very different experience of the world. And I'm touched by a couple of points that this particular chapter brings out for me in personal reflection. And the first is, she references Birth of a Nation, a movie that came out, a silent movie that came out in 1915, and it's had an impact on how the white community, the white supremacist community, has understood, or how black men have been portrayed for over a century, till this day, really. It portrays black men as unintelligent and aggressive and violent, and certainly sexually aggressive towards white women, and all that has gotten into our culture and the ways we understand the world and how we see and perceive black men. And I'm aware that a couple of things that are brought up for me are my own personal relationships with black men in my community and in my past. And I'm aware that for myself, I've not thought through, like, if I'm bringing some of those things to bear, or some of that ways of looking. I served a congregation that was a very ethnically diverse congregation in Toronto. Over half of the community in that congregation were from the Caribbean and from West Africa. I want to believe that I didn't engage in relationships or conversations or caring relationships for that community any differently than I would of a white person. I was aware of the cultural differences between myself and the Ghanaian community from West Africa and the Guyanese community from South America. I was aware of those things around, like, cultural references. I would confess today, I think when I served that community many, many years ago, I had this filtered lens of, and I'm learning more and more around this white supremacy sort of way of seeing the world kind of lens of, like, the things that I was raised with. If you didn't know those things, it caused these sort of challenges in creating conversation and relationship. Pop culture and things like that. There was some real disconnects in that relationship, and there may have been part of me. I'm willing to confess that there may have been part of me that actually looked upon that as, like, oh, somehow that's, your upbringing has been diminished in comparison to mine. Mine's somehow better because I watched certain shows, or I was raised in a culture and a kind of popular culture and know these things, and there's no connection for you in the same way. I want to say also that I'm aware that one of the things in conversations around anti-racism is this piece around, do you have any black friends? Or do you have any friends? Are you friends with BIPOC if you're white? And I will say that a lot of my relationships are not with BIPOC. I'm aware that way back in university times, I had a variety of friends who were BIPOC, and I've already confessed in varieties of ways through this journey already, the ways in which I tone policed, and I used my lens of seeing the world and probably definitely harmed, challenged my BIPOC friends around how they perceived the world. And so I guess all I'm saying in this rambling kind of reflection I'm having around this material in this week and last week, and who knows for next week, is it's making me want to do more work around the excavation part of who I am and how I perceive the world and how I have relationships with black men in particular for this week. And I want to be able to excavate it and then confront it. If there's pieces that I'm discerning and discovering that are things that I may need to change, I need to think about more deeply, I need to be aware of. And then I just need to own that. Because I believe, as Layla has laid out, there's a sense of freeing oneself from that. Freeing oneself not for the privilege of, hey, I'm free, I'm good, but freeing oneself to be able to be more vulnerable, to be more willing to engage in the actions that are necessary to practice anti-racism in the world that we live in today. So again, here's to doing what is right and not always easy. And this week again has been an example of things not being easy, and it's not meant to be. It's about doing something right. Thank you for joining me.